record. I really, really, really enjoyed studying and writing this, I must admit, and I thought this was ideal for taking your yogic studies further, because everything is connected, as you know, but this is something that on your path that we all need to be aware of. I studied the Samskaras on my 200 hours. I remember, as I've got a Californian yogi friend that I trained with, that we call each other the Samskara. We used to call each other the Samskara sisters, because it was like, oh God, these same things keep coming up again and again. So it was like, oh God, when we found out what a Samskara was. So Samskaras in a nutshell. So this is Rod Stryker's teacher here. Samskara means subtle karmic impression. So every action we perform, mental, verbal, or physical, makes impression in the mind, which is stored in the form of memory. So the deeper the impression, the more strongly it influences our current thoughts, speech and actions. So in an attempt to attain self-mastery and reach samadhi, it's crucial that we purify and eventually eliminate our karmic impressions. So today's practice, we were listening to our inner teacher. We were becoming aware of our samskaras and choosing what we're going to do with them. So it's a Sanskrit word often defined as a latent subconscious or a subliminal impression. So it's an imprint on the psyche, and an innate tendency due to past actions. So let's look at the definitions more closely. So subliminal is basically synonymous with subconscious, and it makes the point that samskaras are beneath the conscious awareness. So we're going to go in deeper into, we're going to study a bit more mantra work, and mantras, mantras are powerful, but spoken verbal mantras, they reach your consciousness. Unspoken mantras are the way of reaching the subconscious, so of actually going deeper. Okay, so innate means to derive from the mind, and psyche usually means mind or personality in an overall sense. So to some, psyche could refer to one's soul. So these words point to samskaras existing as part of consciousness and surpassing time and space. So while the imprints are separated from experience, the tendency due to past actions refers to samskaras originating as a result of our actions. So we might think of samskaras as imprints on our subconscious that have become separated from originating actions that cause mental and emotional patterns that affect the way we experience the world. So when I was studying the neuroscience of trauma, which it was actually fascinating, something that scientists have discovered when they were looking at the brain waves, and when something happens to somebody in a traumatic way, the different parts of your brain fire up. It's interesting, there's a part of your brain that shuts down, and that's the part that gets you to do things practically and speak as well. And there's probably, and that's why, you know, sometimes when you're in the shower, you're going, oh my God, I wish I'd said that, and I wish I'd said that. And this is what happens is during a traumatic event, parts of your brain are fired up and parts switch down. It's to protect us. And that sense of self is shut down. And so that part where it's almost like that acting or, you know, and speaking, that's why sometimes when you're really traumatized, you can't say, or you don't do what you afterwards, you go, God, I could have said this, I could have done that. It's the way your brain fires up. But they got people, they wired people up, you know, their brains up, and asked them to remember and acknowledge traumatic experiences. And as they were remembering and speaking about them, the same parts of the brain fired up. So it's, and that happened with everyone. So when you're remembering something that's happened to you, your brain doesn't know it's not happening. It's actually re-experiencing the trauma. So if what we can do as yogis is, as things come up for us, we can choose what we do with them. We could choose that, oh my goodness, it's trauma. Oh, I'm feeling, oh, I don't want to think that. Oh, push it away. And then it's going to keep coming. Actually, the more you work with these things and you see them for what they are, you don't have to push them away. It's a really interesting concept. But this is something to do with the samskaras, the things that come up for you. It's so interesting. So samskaras, they may tint the way we experience ourselves and our world. So the intensity of each samskara depends on a variety of factors, including our age, vulnerability, and our ability to cope with or assimilate situations. So samskaras stay with us beyond the time we first have an experience, and when unchecked can have devastating consequences. They may taint the way we see and experience ourselves in our world, keeping us in the loop of suffering. In other words, samskaras that we are unaware of, that we don't heal from, have the capacity to blind us from what is here and keeping us tethered to a past version of our experiences. So in common use, samskaras used to refer to negative patterns. However, not all samskaras are negative. In the long journey of life, we've performed all kinds of actions, right and wrong, good and bad. And our mind is a warehouse of positive and negative samskaras. It's up to us whether we exercise our willpower and determination to strengthen or eliminate a particular group of them. So we're actually in control. You know, the way the world's going just now, oh my goodness, out of control. We actually are in control of ourselves internally, which actually affects everyone and ourselves from an external perspective too. So let's look at vasanas. So typically the Sanskrit word vasana is defined very similarly to samskara. So it could be defined as subliminal impression, and vasana as a memory trace. Vasana is a subset of samskaras, subconscious impressions that link together to form habit patterns or personality traits. So they're regarded as the immediate cause of rebirth, and in some philosophical schools, they're associated with subtle desires. So in the Secrets of the Yoga Sutra, another book that I'm reading right now, this book, funnily enough, very good book if you ever get a chance to read more. Always like I have a bit of a book nerd there. It's an excellent book as well. So in this book, he defines vasana in part as stronger and more active term for samskara. So it's it's that a difference in intensity. So it appears that in common use, however, samskara is used to encompass the concept as a whole. And so samskara is referred to the concept in its entirety, and the term, and then some use vasana, the different, so vasana is similar, same but different, as they say in Thailand. So let's keep going further. It starts to get a little bit, but basically it's similar, but samskara is what everyone associates the subliminal impressions, but you would say that vasana is some parts of samskaras that come together to form habit patterns or part of your personality, something that you think is your personality, but it's actually not. It's different things that samskaras that come together to give you these like traits that are like habitual. Does that make sense? I'm trying to explain it from different perspectives here. So when our habit patterns become strong enough to alter our thinking process, it's called samskara. And at this stage, we no longer remember when or how this process started. And without introspection or retentive power, we fail to discover the realm of our mind where these samskaras are stored. When our mental world is totally under the influence of these powerful impressions, they become the determining factors of our personality. And due to these samskaras, we perceive this world in our habitual ways. The contents of our mind color our perception of ourselves and others. When even our discriminatory faculty, the intellect, buddhi mind, is colored, and we spontaneously and effortlessly think, speak, and act in accordance with these colored perceptions, then the samskaras have become vasanas. So literally the colors or the coloring agent. So now we have no choice but to see ourselves in the world in accordance with these potent impressions from our past deeds. So defining samskara is just the beginning. How samskaras are formed, how they impact us, and how they dissolve are of utmost importance in yogic philosophy. The Yoga Sutras include the topic of samskaras in sutras 1.18, 1.50, 2.15, 3.9, 3.18, 4.9, and 4.27. So samskaras are mentioned more than asanas. There you go. So impressions come in various intensities, and the most entrenched impressions are known as samskaras or vasanas. So samskaras are associated with changes in the brain, and repetition deepens the impressions and the changes to the brain. So trauma is a common cause of samskaras and associated changes to the brain. But samskaras can be healed, and the associated brain impacts can be rewired. It's possible to bring impressions up to the conscious mind, to fill the grooves and lift above experiences that have imprisoned our mind in the grooves of the past. This is neuroplasticity. It used to be that back in the day, and some of you guys who did the teen training recently with me, we did a lot of the neuroscience and the brain, how the brain works. And you know, neuroplasticity, they used to say, oh, once somebody's had something happen and they're broken. But actually, it's very much, you can't suddenly stop the way you're thinking. They're almost like, this is me going to be a right chuchter here. It's about like a bit like your tatty reels. I'm a child of the 80s. I used to do tatty picking back in the day. You got good money for tatty picking. It's tatty holidays just now, so you know I'm at least I'm relevant. But anyway, you look at the neurons of your brain as like tatty grooves. And the longer you go on doing something or something happens to you, the longer you think something, these tatty grooves, these grooves get deeper and deeper and more entrenched. So it's a bit like they say that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can, but it's going to take longer because the grooves are deeper. But from studying it, you can't just suddenly smooth out the grooves and open up a new one. Your brain's going to go all mushy. It's going to go bleh. So you can start forming new thought patterns, but it takes a while for you to smooth out your tatty reels of your head. I've never described it as that before, but hopefully you have more of an understanding of neuroplasticity from a farmer tutor perspective. So some impressions are like a feather floating on water. They're on the surface of the mind. Others go a little deeper, like a leaf that slowly absorbs more water until sinking, and they sink slowly into the deeper layers of our psyche. The yoga scriptures describe some impressions as so intense that they're embedded deeply, like grooves in chiseled stone. Maybe that sounds a bit more classy than I described it. But these deeper and more entrenched impressions are known as vasanas, and these deeply engraved grooves become a residue of feelings where one or more experiences are not separate memories, but become a conglomerate that produces a sensation of feeling. So each time the action is repeated, the impression becomes stronger. This is how a habit is formed, and the stronger the habit, the less mastery we have over our mind when we try to execute an action that is contrary to our habit patterns. We've all seen how our habit patterns subtly yet powerfully motivate our thoughts, speech, and actions. That's why it's good to have a kind of ritual in your day. So I know that my day will always go better if I do my practices and my first thing in the morning at my altar. So the brain, if the brain's affected, it can heal and rewire. So advanced studies in neuroscience and psychology have confirmed what the wisdom of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras suggested more than 2,000 years ago. First, that the brain is physically and functionally affected as a result of traumas or profound samskaras, that these changes can affect individuals' self-concepts, their visions of their selves and their lives. And second, perhaps more importantly, that the brain also has the capacity to heal, to rewire, or rewrite the impression, so it can be experienced differently, like stepping out of the matrix, not thinking so linearly. So instead of throwing us into the habitual pain of suffering, we can learn to experience a pause, see a lesson, or even gain insight for which we become grateful. This is us sitting in the eye of the storm, not reacting. So according to science, these grooves are known today as gyros, not gyros as in, so it's spelled Gyros. The more we repeat our stories, the grooves are impressed into deeper tissues of our brain. So like an old-time record or disc where one groove is worn more deeply than others. It repetitively repeats over and over again. If we've had an altercation with someone and continue to repeat our version of the story, the groove can go so deep that it would be so difficult to come to a place of forgiveness. According to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it is the vasanas that can be lodged so deeply in the tissues of our psyche that they can be held in memory for more than one lifetime. They are the reason our soul continues to return to this planet life after life and cannot move on to explore other interdimensional realities. So let's look at the vital importance of habits. So you don't change your life, you change your habits, and your habits change your life. A habit is a behavioral pattern acquired by frequent repetition or physiological exposure that shows itself in regularity or increased ease of performance. So by definition, a habit is a pattern frequently repeated, will create a samskara, an impression that becomes stronger through repetition. The vital importance of habits can be described in a nutshell by the common adage, what you repeat, you become. A key tool in creating change is recognizing that some habits are unconscious and some are consciously chosen. Unconscious habits are likely the outcomes of negative samskaras. Conscious habits are a way to keep your promises to yourself and create the life you desire. So people who pray, meditate, do spiritual practices, do yoga, go on pilgrimage, and are very sincere in the practice, given the slightest opportunity, will overindulge themselves in other distractions right after this spiritual practice. Not everyone, but some people. So they undo all the progress they've just made. And why? Sometimes it's just the desire to rebel, to be naughty after being so good. Sometimes it's the dark side trying to make up for the light side, having its time in the sun. And sometimes, at times, it's the fear of succeeding. The truth is, it's always the false personality trying to assert its dominance over the overall personality. The ego enslaving the person once again after they've made gains to become free of it. The ego, of course, operates in fear. It feeds on fear and tries to increase fear so that it has dominion. Fear begets fear, and this continues to drive the cycle of suffering. Good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, an ever-revolving program of feel good, feel bad, feel guilty, punish self for being bad, etc. So let's face it, in the long run, this consequence of duality is very boring. There's nothing new here. It will go on and on for lifetime after lifetime until we handle it. The good news is that these illusions will all pass as we mature, and it just takes time to grow up. So you know what's better than chocolate, Netflix, and puppies? The feeling you get when you keep a promise to yourself. Most of us have been conditioned to abandon ourselves, and we're constantly putting other people and their priorities ahead of our most basic needs. But when you commit to implementing small positive habits and you actually stick with them, you get a rush of endorphins, a feeling of, yes, why did I wait for so long? So James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, says there's 4 laws to creating a new habit. Number 1, make it obvious. Number 2, make it attractive. Number 3, make it easy. And number 4, make it satisfying. So one of the techniques that he teaches is called habit stacking, where you take a current habit and then couple it with a new habit to help it stick. For example, after making coffee in the morning, a current habit, you can write in your journal for 5 minutes, a new habit. Of course, your habit can be anything you want to add to your daily routine. Meditation, affirmation, yoga, and catching up with friends. Another twist to this is giving yourself a reward for doing your new habit. This is a bit like Pavlov's dog. So after making tea in the morning, you can write your journal for 5 minutes. And after you write in your journal for 5 minutes, you can reward yourself with a donut. I don't eat donuts, but obviously you can make your reward anything that will keep you personally motivated to perform the new habit. So according to Mr. Clear, 40 to 50% of daily actions are habits, and habits automate choices. So it's best to keep your habit forming easy. So if you're going to start writing in your journal, it could be for 5 minutes the first time, and you could add an additional 5 minutes every week. So using these tips to form good habits is very helpful. So in Raja, or classical yoga, the purpose of yoga is to still the modifications of the mind, and it is thus specifically designed to address such profound issues such as samskaras. The ways in which yoga helps to uncover and purify samskaras include the following. The practices of yoga, asana, pranayama, and concentration and meditation are designed to reach into our cellular structure where memories are stored in varying layers of our psyche. Engaging in the discipline of a regular yoga practice will tend to bring emotions and thinking patterns that had previously been hidden into awareness. By definition, mindfulness and meditation will bring such patterns into conscious awareness. Said another way, observation without reaction or witness consciousness is a primary tool in uncovering and purifying samskaras. Building and managing prana is another reason why yoga helps with purifying negative imprints and building positive ones. So the body of yoga, not just as a physical practice, but as a mental, emotional, and spiritual discipline and guide into our consciousness and psyche, teaches us that samskaras can greatly affect how we experience and interpret the circumstances of our lives, and hence greatly impact our capacity for happiness and our experiences of suffering. Petrified and facing continual panic attacks resembling those of people in trauma, you can turn to your practice and use the tools and have the understanding that this fear feels true because of the wiring, and it can be reframed because it can be healed. So through practice, you can work through the hidden aspect of an old samskara, one that might not have shown up had you not decided to do something. And when you practice despite the discomfort and meet your fear again and again with a curious mind and a forgiving heart, and you come with a willingness to greet what was there, armed with your breath and your faith and awareness of the power of your practice, little by little your symptoms can decrease. So Patanjali's assertion that yoga path is a radical vehicle for clearing our samskaras can be proven by doing our practices. So repetitive thoughts create neural pathways, and driving with the it's kind of like driving with the emergency brake on in our car. Negative samskaras that result from difficult experiences with karma impede our efforts at self-improvement and wreak havoc on the accomplishment of our goals. So we can begin by astutely watching our thoughts, bringing them into the light of awareness. We can cleanse our mind by catching and discarding judgment, fears, self-doubts, and limitations. So the rhythm of your life is composed of what you repeat. Over and over, this rhythm creates a groove, a pathway in the mind, in the heart, and in the body. And some patterns become fixed and held in place. So start by observing, what do I repeat? What are the thoughts, words, and actions that cycle through each day and month and year? Day by day, cycle by cycle. Habit change begins with building your life force, your breath, and your prana. The process of building prana in the body is a bit like building a fire. You have to start small, but once the flames catch, they build on each other. So this increase can make it easier to make other healthy choices in your life. And you can connect with your creative infinity and create this groove to your true self. So the secret is not to resist what is happening or not try to fix it with more band-aids that will only perpetuate current problems. The secret is what in shamanism is called seeing, what the Buddhists call compassion, and what Jesus called forgiveness. They're all basically the same thing. You have compassion for the world and you forgive yourself for your imperfections. You see the old worn out activity of the ego and simply turn your attention to it and say, I see you. I see who you are. I see what you are. You're not who I really am. You are not true. You have no power over me. Leave now. This is not resistance. It's being proactive and taking charge of choosing something different. Repeat this hundreds or if not thousands of times and stop resisting, and you will make progress in ending apparently unsolvable problems. If you play by the rules of the ego, you will fail over and over. It wants you to get frustrated, get angry, be fearful, hate, and act out. So if we follow our undying will, we will be able to overcome the influence of our negative samskaras. All we need is patience. So don't build high expectations of yourself in the beginning stages of your endeavor to erase the negative traits that are influencing your destiny. Instead of trying to penetrate the entire mystery of karma, samskara, vasana, and destiny, simply try to compose yourself. With a calm and tranquil mind, assess your strengths and weaknesses. Then decide whether at this stage you should place greater emphasis on eliminating your negative samskaras or strengthening the positive ones. So let's look at the sutras in the topic of the samskaras. So Sutra 1.18 says, by the firmly convinced practice of the complete cessation of the mental modifications, the impressions only remain. This is the other samadhi. So Sutra 1.50 says that samskaras are born of intuitive wisdom. Samskaras born of intuitive wisdom cancel all other samskaras. Sutra 2.15 says that all life is suffering for a man of discrimination because of the sufferings inherent in change and its corrupting subliminal impression, and because of the way the qualities of material nature turn against themselves. Sutra 3.9, Nirodha Parinama, is that state of transformation of mind where it's permeated by the moment of suppression which appears and disappears between incoming and outgoing samskaras. Sutra, so this is heavy stuff, but you can, this stuff is in your manual, so you can go back to it, meditate on one sutra. But throwing loads of sutras at you, it's not helpful. If one really resonates with you just now, you can go back to your manual, look and see which sutra, and work and meditate on that one for as long as it takes, instead of trying. It's about like trying to read the whole of the sutras in one day. It's best to just take one that resonates and just allow it to marinate and work with it. Which one are you drawn to? So Sutra 3.18, directly observing latent impressions with perfect discipline yields insight into previous births. Sutra 4.9, memory and latent impressions are strongly linked. This link remains even if there's an interval of time, place, or context between similar actions. Sutra 4.27 states that all thoughts that arise to interrupt this discrimination are born of the latent impressions that still exist. So there's more, you can go deeper into it. I've got a lot more stuff. So Deshi Shakar, there's quite a few different, Swami Satyananda I've got some explanations of these sutras, a lot deeper if you want to go into it and read it later. I'm not going to just read them off. I think it's when things like this, I know for myself, for something so deep as that, I need complete peace. I need to be in a specific zone to really allow, and you read something, read it over, allow it to come together before for me, just speaking at you, it doesn't go in so well. So come back to go deeper into what the sutras say about samskaras. Okay, so we're going to go into beliefs, vikalpas, unconscious limiting beliefs. So basically, when I studied the 4 desires, we as well as discovering our dharma, you know, our statement, our statement for life, our action statement for life, and finding out which of the 4 desires that we're not really, that we need to work on. We also had to discover what our vikalpa was, and this is really interesting. So, you know, from practicing yoga nidra, when you, at the beginning, you have to find your sankalpa, positive affirmation, or something you want to bring in. So you have to really feel it, to feel that it's already happened. Sometimes it's almost like that's not going to go in, or it's not going to work if you have a vikalpa deep inside with you that believes otherwise. So we all have vikalpas within us, but they're really, really deeply entrenched within us. And it's beliefs within us that we think are true, we believe to be true, but they're not factual. It's something that's maybe happened to you in your life that's become something deeper than that, and it actually limits you. So if you haven't found your vikalpa, you're gonna struggle to find your sankalpa, the more positive aspect, because vikalpas are actually more powerful, unfortunately. So one of my vikalpas back then, I was coming out of a quite bad marriage, and my vikalpa was, I believed that men had power and control over me, and I had no control or power, and I was helpless. And it was because I had a very controlling and angry father, and I ended up in relationships where I was controlled by egotistical, narcissistic men, but because that's all I knew. So I didn't realize that was my vikalpa. So as much as you could be like, right, I need to leave this relationship, and I'm all this sort of trying to be positive, but inherently I believed I had no control, no power. You know, so if you're going through life with that as your vikalpa, you're giving that to yourself. So very, very interesting. So I'm going to read a little bit about vikalpas, and you can go deeper into it and figure them out for yourself. But it's so interesting, and I think this is the thing, is that the more you go deeper into the sutras and humanities and philosophy, if you're going to be doing workshops and taking your teachings further, you can theme things around that. You can do workshop on samskaras and vikalpas, and like really applying some of this. So allowing people to work with, like, seeing things and work with transmuting and giving people understandings of it. I used to run workshops where I did a theme, and I would do like a theme of something like the kleshas, and then I would make up some handouts and write stuff, and then I would teach a class in pranayama and apply it to that philosophy, and it would be like a 2.5 hour, or it could be a 3-hour practice, but you do an hour and a half, a little break, and another hour and a half. So I think now people are looking for more things where they can, it's almost like they're working on improving themselves and also working on self-awareness and taking, there's so many yoga practitioners out there, and some aren't necessarily looking to become yoga teachers, but they want to develop their own practices. And this is where you guys come in. as advanced practitioners, you can take people further and not churn out generic brown yoga classes. Yeah. So what is a belief? A belief is the acceptance that something is true or real, a feeling of trust, faith, or confidence in someone or something. It's an assumed truth. So a belief is a state of mind. It's a proposition that a person accepts as representing the way the world actually is, but it can be based on false propositions or misperceptions. If evidence is obtained, then belief presumably becomes knowledge. However, beliefs will naturally cause us to find proof of our belief, making this differentiation between beliefs and knowledge a slippery slope. Beliefs can help us to accept the unknown, and they can limit potential and cause pain. So most people do not recognize the beliefs that bind them to their version of reality are simply ideas, and that these ideas could shield them from the truth. So the subconscious mind is fundamental programs of life that we acquire from our parents, our family, our community between the last trimester of pregnancy and the first 7 years of life. Nature created this process to download how to be a member of a family, a society, and a culture by strictly observing other people. It's actually a brain function that's the equivalent of hypnosis. So the fundamental programs of the subconscious are not yours. So as Dr. Bruce Lipton explains, many beliefs were formed before the age of 7 as a result of nature's ways of socializing a child. The beliefs that are passed on from family and community are deeply powerful because humans are innately aware of the need to be part of a group. We usually believe that things can and will happen because they have previously happened. Beliefs will often be based on personal experience, despite the fact that personal experience is an extremely limited part of the entire realm of possibility and truth. As we come to believe what we repeatedly tell ourselves, often an unconscious process. So such patterns get created in our early years of development by subconsciously believing we will be more liked by others if we are more like others. And this creates a psychological cocoon of human conditioning for the soul to inhabit until it's ready to awaken and expand into the light of its higher potential. Suffice to say, the ego is the limiting belief, self-defeating choices, and narrow viewpoints of dormant consciousness. So strongly held beliefs are in actuality one's judge, jury, and jailer. Enforcing a sentence with no hope of parole, on the other hand, acquiring a new set of empowering beliefs and holding them loosely could be the grand liberator. So some beliefs are particularly deep-seated and maybe subconscious, and that is unrecognized by our waking consciousness. These are sometimes called core beliefs and refer to the subconscious program from which a person acts out their life. Core beliefs carry emotional attachments and have a major impact on thoughts and actions. And because they are so ingrained, core beliefs can hinder development. So let's look at Vikalpas. So they're negative patterns of thought that color our viewpoint in every moment. They're what's stopping you in thriving in life. V means separation in Sanskrit, and kalpa means a rule to be followed above all others. So Vikalpa means mental constructs or beliefs that separate us from our higher self and thus our higher purpose. So some core, deeply seated foundational beliefs based on past conditioning and experiences can thwart our individual growth through our thought patterns, actions, and experiences. And these are referred to as limiting beliefs. The Sanskrit words Vikalpa and the modern term limiting beliefs are basically pointing to the same thing. Examples are, everyone I love will leave me if I put myself out there. People will laugh at me. It's weak to ask for help. I'm ugly. I'm unlovable. It will never work because men should be, women should be. I can't. I'm not smart enough to. So particularly when we're working with goal setting, sankalpa and intention, a vital consideration is the powerful role of subconscious patterning. So if hidden reservations or unconscious agendas lurk under the surface of your psyche, they can sabotage the arrow of your intention. That's true whether your goal is to attract the perfect partner, to expand your business, or to go deeper in your yoga practice. So at the beginning of an intentional process, it's important to face your own reservations, feelings of not quite deserving what you think you want, or simply unprocessed emotions. The most telling and powerful step you can take to reduce your internal resistance to achieving your desires is to identify your vikalpas. In the battle between your conscious desire and your unconscious tendencies, the latter will win more often than not. Your deepest driving desire determines your destiny, and the pool of the unconscious and the vikalpas that reside there are so powerful that no matter how worthy the goal or how hopeful you might be about attaining it, they have the potential to lead you not only away from your desires, but possibly to dark, even destructive places. So, why do we have limiting beliefs? Every human being, whether in the most comfortable or the most unsafe environment, has adapted in numerous ways to simply feel safe and to survive. Every place has its rules and expectations, from families, social constructs, culture, religion, etc., that must be followed in order to be accepted. Since small humans instinctively know they must be accepted in order to survive, they adapt to those around them. So many such adaptations can be contrary to our organic temperament. So in an effort to make sense of the disconnect between our inner and outer experience, we develop beliefs. Perfection is required in order to be loved. Being independent is dangerous. We're like the elephants who were captured when they were young and don't realize they could now pull out the stakes which are holding them captive. We maintain the same adaptations and beliefs we learned at a young age, even though they no longer serve us. So why are beliefs so powerful? So here we're going to cover 5 notable reasons why beliefs make such a powerful impact on our lives. So number 1, beliefs that may once have served a role remain unquestioned and severely limit our development. 2, some beliefs can become inseparable from the most basic concept of who we are, our self-concept and our identity. And 3, thinking and beliefs are enmeshed. 4, beliefs guide actions, which then reinforce beliefs. 5, beliefs and thoughts program our brain and thus our 5 senses reality. So in commenting on the resistance, this surgeon, author of the book Love, Medicine and Miracles, asserts that it's because people are addicted to their beliefs, that people are, that's why they resist. So this is why when you try to change someone's belief, they act like an addict. There seems to be a good deal of truth to this observation, which is Perhaps why so many of civilization's greatest insights and advances have at first been greeted with such passionate denial. We're addicted to our beliefs, and we do act like addicts when someone tries to wrest us from the powerful opium of our dogmas. Beliefs formed early in life often remain unquestioned even after they no longer serve us. So this profound observation of elephants in captivity demonstrates this quite clearly. So beliefs and identity become one. So beliefs can become inseparable from the most basic concept of who we are, our self-concept and our identity. So we see a lot of the same brain systems involved when people think about who they are and about the beliefs that are most important to them. When your most deeply held beliefs are challenged, many of the most biologically basic brain systems, those responsible for protecting us, kick into high gear. So these are things like amygdala, which tells you I find it really difficult to pronounce words sometimes. So this is the part of the brain which tells you when to be afraid, and the part of your brain that processes visceral feelings from the gut and tells you things like if you're encountering food that's bad for you. So we have a strong motivation to defend those sacred values. So thinking and beliefs are also enmeshed. Beliefs are like the roots of a tree. From the root beliefs come the branches of thought. For example, everything will turn out all right in the end, which is your thought, because I believe in myself and the goodness of others. Belief. While beliefs lead to thinking particular thoughts, repeated thoughts lead to the development of beliefs. So that is compulsively repeated thoughts such as, I am not good enough or smart enough, people don't like me, create a pattern that can lead to a belief. Remember that such core beliefs tend to be out of the realm of consciousness and thus may not at first seem reasonable or true. When issues keep repeating and logic isn't working, then delving into the subconscious can help to uncover the actual source of our blocks. We may then apply strategies to overcome and transform such core beliefs through a process of personal transformation that is also called the hero's journey. Beliefs guide actions, which then reinforce beliefs. So beliefs determine where we put our energy and our focus, thus impacting our actions. And consider for a moment the power of our actions. It's difficult to overstate their importance. Actions represent who we are and are the basis of how others perceive us. Our actions shape our very identity. As an example of how beliefs, actions, and identity are related, consider how repeated negative self-talk becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Repeated thought, I can't do this. Belief, I am not worthy. Action, distraction, entertainment. Addiction, other actions that are not in alignment with your dreams, which leads to thoughts. My dreams aren't reality because I am not worthy. So in thinking that you're ugly, you no doubt struggle with your self-esteem and confidence. If you think everyone is better than you are at their job, then you may well feel small and unimportant. If you consider that the world only wants to take from you, then you may find yourself reduced to cynicism, locked in a prism of seeing the world and its people in a negative way. This will affect what you offer to the world and what you're willing to give and share. Core beliefs affect what you achieve and how you operate in the world at large. Negative and often inaccurate core beliefs will drastically reduce your chances of joy and self-fulfillment in life. Another example, let's say you have a core belief, not conscious, that your personal worth is related to your material possessions. You might focus on, say, acquiring an expensive boat, maybe even a yacht. And you may look longingly at others with yachts and ask them for their advice about purchasing and owning a yacht. You may spend every free minute preoccupied with the detailed information provided by yacht sellers, reinforcing your subconscious belief that having particular features on your yacht reflects on you and your own inner worth. Once you've acquired your yacht, you may find yourself socializing with others who have yachts, and by default, you're not hanging out with people who live in simple huts and use rowboats, or those who spend all their free time hiking or starting a non-profit. Because you're hanging out with other yacht owners, some of whom are likely to also believe there's a connection between yachts and a person's inner worth, they're likely to reinforce your belief that your yacht is indeed a reflection of your inherent worth. With so much input, all caused by your actions that were undertaken because of your belief is continually reinforced. So thoughts program the brain and the five senses reality. So beliefs impact our thoughts, and thoughts program our brain and our body. While many inspirational speakers and deep thinking philosophers and neuroscientists teach this topic, it can be difficult for a student to wrap their mind around. That thoughts can dictate a reality may inspire resistance because it seems to counter a common understanding of objective reality. How can this possibly be true? Every minute of every day, your body's physically reacting, literally changing in response to the thoughts that run through your mind. It's been proven over and over again that just thinking about something causes your brain to release neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that allow it to communicate with parts of yourself and your nervous system. Neurotransmitters control virtually all of your body's functions, from hormones to digestion to feeling happy, sad, or stressed. Students may think of their brain as the cause of their thoughts. However, as noticed earlier, our beliefs can lead to thinking patterns, and we can all learn to choose different thoughts, which can then cause the brain to respond differently. Repeating certain thoughts, particularly when emotionally charged, effectively programs the brain. And the brain's design calls it to look for proof of the input it's received. A simple example is becoming very excited and interested in buying a green car. As you think exciting thoughts of what it'd be like to have a green car, you suddenly begin to notice green cars everywhere. Prior to this thought programming, you never saw or noticed green cars. This happens because your brain is responding to the input, which then alters your sensory experience. So the eye and brain work in partnership to interpret conflicting signals from the outside world. Ultimately, we see whatever our brains think we should. For most people, beliefs form a mega thick lens through which they view reality. This distorting impairment only allows their senses to consider data that confirms what they already believe, forming the ultimate hamster's wheel for the human mind. Therefore, their strongly held beliefs shield them from much of the reality transpiring around them by filtering out all of that nasty data that does not support their notions of the way things are. So there is no objective reality. So one of the most foundational limiting beliefs is that reality is fixed. And in fact, there's no objective reality. Sages throughout history have taught that we have unlimited power to create and impact how we perceive the world. And quantum mechanics is beginning to offer insight into how this works. So according to an experiment led by two physicists, reality doesn't exist. So turn on, tune in, and drop out, because the world as you know it is all kinds of weird, at least on a quantum level. So you attract a situation that reflects back to you from a world of possibility based upon your belief systems. While the topics of objective reality, the observer effect, and other quantum physics topics are wonderful areas for discussion and teaching, we recommend a bit of caution around the topic of attraction. So many people have experienced trauma, disease, and loss. Does this mean that they're choosing or attracting these things because they have a deep belief they're unworthy of peace, joy, or health? I don't think that's necessarily so, and nor do we think it's appropriate for anyone other than the individual to take the lead in delving into subconscious beliefs. Some of us personally think that such big experiences are a result of karmic balancing on a grand scale across lives. But it's not important that we all agree on such things. More importantly, suggest that if you're talking about how we can create and alter our reality, that you focus in on your thinking and perception of it. So no matter what is happening, we have a choice in whether we accept it, how we frame it, and how we act. Each of these factors make a momentous impact on our experience, no matter the shared experience in the outer world. Whew. Heavy stuff, guys. So I thought that we would end on that. So Samskaras and Vikalpas, belief systems, it's all mentioned in the sutras, and it's all very relevant. And the more you work with the tantric practices, the more we can help to bring light to these and transmute our Vikalpas. So now you're if you weren't already aware, because I don't want to make assumptions, if you weren't already aware, now you're aware of Samskaras and Vikalpas. Start to, so the more we work with use our asana to connect to the breath to the mind, the breath is the key to our subconscious. The mind is the key to the subconscious. So we can help control our mind, come into our meditation more deeply by controlling our breath, and we can really help contain our breath, get our breath more smooth by practicing asana. So by working with our asana to help connect to our breath, and using the breath to help steady the mind with our pranayama leading to meditation, our meditations, instead of mindlessly meditating, we're going to be working with accessing the key to our subconscious, which ultimately opens the door to our Vikalpas, so we can look at them and see them for what they really are, and we can let go of them. And I've done it. It's quite a, it's quite a, not emotional. It's a really big time in your life if you can go, oh my God, all my life I've been thinking this and I didn't know I thought that. So the Vikalpas are deep stuff, and most people will go through their life not aware that they have deeply ingrained beliefs that they've picked up, but it's holding them back from really truly being themselves or reaching their potential. So that's where we're at on day one. Heavy shit, yes, but that's what this is all about. It's a process. So I'm going to stop recording.